look in Parsha Shelach, after the whole rebellion, after the remember we spoke about the spies. The spies dying. We're at page 812. Actually, page 814. The spies died, and they die in this plague, and it's a rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu. And then on page 814, there's a vital point. I didn't have my notes, so I skipped it. I just want to go back to this for a second. On page 814, there's a whole discussion here starting on the previous couple of pages, all about the various offerings the Jewish people are going to bring when they come to the land of Israel. It looks like a very technical section. Talks about the type of offerings you bring and what you bring as a libation, which is the wine offering that they brought, in the mincha, the flour offering, that comes along with the meal offering that comes along with the korban, which is the sacrifice, which is an animal. Then the Torah on page 814 on the second line says, "V'haya ime einei ha'eda ne'esesa lishgaga." The Torah talks about if from the eyes, literally the eyes of the congregation, an avero is done unintentionally. Now, the eyes of the congregation, Rashi says, refers to the leaders of the leaders of the congregation, usually the Sanhedrin. Now, why are they called the eyes of the congregation? Why are they called the leaders are called the eyes? Einei ha'eda, ime einei ha'eda. So one of the ideas, obviously, is because we, as a fundamental in Torah, we believe that the greater a person is in Torah wisdom, the greater his vision, his foresight. That's why when we have to make crucial decisions, we turn to the leaders of the generation, because they could see things that we can't possibly see. They have foresight, they have Torah knowledge, and the Torah knowledge gives you an understanding, and not only an understanding of what's happening right now, but an understanding of how that's going to play out in the future, some sort of sense of what's going to happen. And because, in life you always want the more long-term vision, the better. Sometimes, they have a guy as an investor, but what feels good isn't always the best thing, because right now it might be a good investment, but it's going to, if you had a little bit of foresight, you'd see what's going to happen down the line. If this happens in life, and many, a guy makes a career choice, because right now it seems like it's a good career choice, but think about what the consequences are down the line. So for example, a guy decides to become a dentist. I have nothing against dentists. Well, I do, because I was by the dentist yesterday, but I have nothing against dentists, and you got to go. But dentists happen to have the highest, based on the studies, dentists happen to have the highest mortality rate, or rather the lowest age mortality rate of all the professions. Now, why that is, I don't know. But they die the youngest, yeah. But of all the professions, they've done these studies. Dentists and doctors are always 1, 2 on the list. Teachers are always way down at the bottom, no pressure job. So it has to do with, so I don't know why it is. I can only, a dentist knows intellectually that he's helping you, but most of the time he's got people in pain, and he can't even carry on a conversation with you. At least a doctor could talk to you. The people at the dentist, it's usually a one-way conversation. Well, I saw they had some trouble over there in Travilsey the other day. What do you think? I don't know exactly why you're asking me. So it becomes a very, so I don't know why this. A guy decides, I want to become a dentist. You make good money. It's a good parnus. It's a nice, clean living, so on and so forth. On the other hand, a little foresight. Is that really what you want? I mean, look at the statistics. A guy smokes cigarettes because he lives for the moment, and he realizes, look at the statistics. Doesn't mean everybody's going to die, and so on and so forth. So we have to live with a projection. Einei ha'eda is compared to people who are in a watchtower. You have a guy sitting down at the bottom of the watchtower. You have a guy all the way at the top of the watchtower. So the guy at the bottom of the watchtower says, "Uh-oh, the enemy tanks are coming. We better get ready." And the guy at the top of the tower says, "Well, don't worry about it, because only one row of tanks, and I've got a better vision. I can see what's going on down in the horizon." So we believe that the leaders of the generation have that vision to be able to see what's going on down in the horizon. One of the classic stories is the Brisk Rav, the great Brisk Rav, Rabbi Zev Soloveitchik, and he was known for his foresight in many, many issues of what he saw, what he foresaw. And people think, wow, he had Ruach HaKodesh, divine spirit. It has very little to do with Ruach. They may have Ruach HaKodesh, but a lot of it is just Torah wisdom. You just see a whole picture. So he was once, Brisk Rav was about to go to sleep. So he said, and he was essentially the Torah leader of the generation. He said to his sons before he goes to sleep, I'm going to go to sleep, and a short while after I go to sleep, you're going to hear a low knock at the door. When you hear the knock at the door, open the door very quickly, surprise the guy who's knocking, and tell him I'll be right out to speak to him. So his sons didn't know what's going on, and sure enough, Brisk Rav goes to sleep. About a half hour later, a very low knock at the door. So his son immediately grabs the door, and the guy's shocked that somebody heard the knock and opened the door, and he calls him in. And the Brisk Rav comes out, and he speaks to the guy, and the guy leaves. So after the guy left, the son said to Brisk Rav, Dad, what was that all about? He says, look, there was an assembly of rabbis. They were gathering to meet and make a certain decision, and they know that I'm against their policy. So on the one hand, they're afraid to go against me, against my decision. On the other hand, they very much want to make that decision. So what I realized was, what they're going to do is they're going to send somebody to consult me. They'll have them knock on the door softly, so tomorrow they could say, well, we knocked, but nobody answered. And then we could say, we had to make the decision. We couldn't get a hold of you. So I knew they were going to do that. So I told you, open the door and get them, and now I could send them what I thought. You know, as if you say, wow, it's amazing. No, you know, when you get to know people, you know, and that's how it is in life. You know, the older you get, hopefully, an adult, it has greater foresight than a child. We believe they're the Einei Ha'eda, number one. That's a side point. Gentlemen, that's a side point. The vital point over here is that there's a very big misconception that the world makes about what we think of ourselves. People think that because Torah Jews are Torah Jews and maybe we wear black. By the way, you don't have to wear black. There's no halacha that you could wear black. You could wear dark gray also. You know, it doesn't have to be black. And what do you call it? So people think, well, we wear black jackets and hats, and some have payas and beards, and we think that we're so righteous. So you should know, sometimes the secular media will often champion, which we've mentioned before, as soon as somebody in the Orthodox community steps out of line, look, they did it also. Look, they're no better than we are, that sort of thing. We never said we're not. To the contrary. Right here, the Torah says, what do you do if the Sanhedrin made a mistake? We are not infallible. Nobody ever said that we're infallible. Rabbis can make mistakes. Rabbanim can. Nobody said we're infallible. People say, well, look at the rabbis before the Holocaust. They didn't know either. Who said they have to know everything? We never said that we're not. We never said that we're infallible. And the secular world seems to think that maybe we're projecting it, I don't know, but they seem to think that we think that we're infallible. We're not infallible. Gentlemen, I remember about 9 years ago, I spoke Lashon Hara. I remember. So, we're not, he's the only one who got it. So we're not infallible. We never said that we're perfect. We're trying to improve. We're trying to perfect ourselves. We're trying to get better all the time. And nobody ever said that we're perfect. Nobody ever said that we're infallible. And if you look at a remarkable phenomenon that you find in the Torah, there's a medrash that says there was a Roman noblewoman. This Roman woman who confronted a it was maybe Rav Yossi ben Chalafta, Rav Shimon, I think it was Rav Shimon ben Chalafta, one of the Tanoim. This Roman noblewoman confronted him, and she said, "Hey, that biblical story over there about Joseph, and then going down to Egypt, and he runs away from the advances of Mrs. Potiphar. Come on, come on. He's 17 years old. He's in a den of iniquity. His parents aren't around. He's almost in as good a situation as being in college, and being in university at a frat party with a punch bowl. I mean, come on, who are you trying to kid over here? Who are you trying to kid?" So Shimon ben Chalafta said to her, "1 second. Let's take a good look at the Torah." Reuven gets involved in Yaakov's personal business. He moves the beds around, and the Torah says, look what Reuven did. The Torah uses very harsh terms. The Torah uses terms that he slept with his father's concubine, which is a way of emphasizing that he got involved in his father's private life. Yehuda, he solicits Tamar. Turns out it's his daughter-in-law, and it turns out she was doing it in order to marry him so that they would be able to continue the Davidic line, and eventually it leads to Mashiach. But he didn't know it at the time. So he said to her, here are two men. They're with the mainstream Jewish people. At the time was Yaakov and his sons. They've got the backbone of Judaism, of the community with them. They're under their father's jurisdiction, and therefore their sin is really unforgivable if they were to sin. And the Torah doesn't whitewash it. The Torah says, yeah, they did it. The Torah says they did it. So if Yosef would have done what he did, if he would have done what you think he would have done, he should have done, or he did do. So, we can certainly understand a 17-year-old out of his father's jurisdiction in Egypt We don't whitewash anything. And so if the Torah says that he didn't do it, you could trust the Torah because you see, we don't whitewash. That's what he said to her. But I want to point out something very interesting. If you pick any name, just about any name in the Chumash, just about any name, there's a criticism leveled at him. Adam is criticized for eating the fruit. Noach is criticized for getting drunk. Avram Avinu is criticized for challenging God, for asking for having less faith than he should have by saying, how do I know we're going to get the land of Israel? Yaakov is criticized for marrying two sisters. Yitzchak, there's an implied criticism for favoring Esav. Moshe Rabbeinu gets angry. Aaron worships the golden calf. Moshe Rabbeinu hits the rock. Miriam speaks Lashon Hara. These are all the greatest people in history. And when they step out of line, the Torah points out the flaw. That's a lesson to us. Number one, we're human beings. There's no dispensation, unless you pay me the right amount. There's no dispensation on the one hand. On the other hand, we're human beings, and we never claimed that we're perfect. That's a very important lesson that comes out of that part of the Torah. Very important lesson. Okay. Let's go on. I'm just telling you that so that if you're ever confronted by, well, the Orthodox are no better than you are, no better than we are. I mean, let's keep it in proper perspective. You know, we have our flaws, but let's take a look at the numbers and look at the percentages, and you'll see that it doesn't really match up.